welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. It is Rankings Day. We've already got the quarterbacks video out, and it is time for the tight end position. Later on today, you will see the wide receivers and running back videos. A couple of quick announcements here. You can find my rankings up as of Thursday on www.theffforge. There's a link down in the description below to all of the positions. My rankings will look different than these rankings, especially for the wide receivers and running back positions, because up on the website there are projections. There are an expected range that these guys are expected to be scoring within this week, and then there are also floors and ceilings that you can see there. And also because of those projections, my rankings will alter, because in these videos what I did is I took the ECR from Fantasy Pros website and then I mixed them up from there, and that does have some influence on the end ranking that I put out here in this video, as well as the fact that the projections have some influence on it, and of course my own thoughts. That being said, if this is all you see, that's fine too. These are still rankings that I stand by. I'm putting them out in the public for a reason, but they're just my rankings 1.0. Rankings are fluid throughout the week. Some of these players may not even be playing by the time we get to Sunday. That happens. Big news may come out that may alter some situations, in a big way. So rankings are always going to be fluid. We are still early on in the week here, Tuesday, as of the time that I'm recording this. And now let's just get on to this rankings, because I think we can do this video quicker than we did the quarterbacks video. I explained these in the quarterbacks video, but right here is the tiers. We're going to go through this via tier instead of like the top 12 as I have in some previous videos, because I prefer to look at things in tiers compared to a set number. Then over here we have the difficulty rating. Red is good, blue is bad, and white is neutral. And over here is the difference between myself and the ECR. If it is in the positive, that means that I was above the ECR in my ranking compared to that ranking. So let's start off with the first tier for the tight ends here. Starting off at number 1, I have Travis Kelce. What a surprise, followed by Mark Andrews, George Kittle at number 3, TJ Hawkinson, Pat Freiermuth, David Njoku, Dalton Schultz at number 7 to wrap up my first tier. And these are all guys that I'm putting out there. These are guys where if I had 2 of them, I would be thinking, depending on my roster, of course, of playing 2 of them, playing one in my flex and one in my tight end spot. These are the types of guys that you can give that much kind of trust to. They do have some value even on a wide receiver and running back scale. I'd say if there's one guy I would be the most nervous about saying that about, it would probably be David Njoku here. But as you probably know by now, I like him a lot. Now let's move on to my second tier of tight ends, which has a big range going from my 8th ranked tight end at Evan Ingram all the way down to 18. After Evan Ingram, I have Tyler Conklin, Gerald Everett, Foster Moreau, Hayden Hurst, Tyler Higbee, Greg Dulcich, Dawson Knox, Juwan Johnson, Cole Kmet, and Hunter Henry. And I will say, basically, from 15 to 8, it's really a no man's land of who do you want. You can see there is a hefty matchup weighting towards who I liked in this grouping, and yeah, that definitely played an influence. But let's talk about who we are going to talk about. Starting off right here with Evan Ingram, who I've ranked 8th. The ECR has him at 16 currently, going up against Detroit. So I'm 8 spots ahead of the ECR, and I'm liking him a fair bit, as always. It has a lot to do with the matchup. After a couple of disappointing games, I was not expecting to have him that high this week, but it's just there is a cluster after those top 7 as I have it. It gets very much where you can argue anything between these. You could argue Hunter Henry over Evan Ingram, and you have yourself a decent argument. I actually had Dalton Schultz in this tier at first, and I was like, well, I couldn't really argue Hunter Henry over Dalton Schultz. So that's where I made that cutoff. Now, Tyler Conklin is just a very similar story. I have him ranked 9th. The ECR in him is 17. So once again, 8 spots ahead of the ECR going up against Minnesota. It's a juicy matchup. Mike White is there. Early on in that game, he was hitting Tyler Conklin quite a bit. My big concern would be, did he learn that Garrett Wilson's really good? If I get it into my wide receivers' hands, they can do a lot more with it than Tyler Conklin. That's possible. Tyler Conklin may move back a little bit, but I have concerns for guys like Gerald Everett. With the return of Keenan Allen, he is the guy who I think competes the most with Gerald Everett outside of Austin Eckler as far as taking away targets from a Gerald Everett. Historically, though, there's not much of a history, but Justin Herbert has liked that tight end position a fair bit early on his career so far. So there's some hope there in a really good matchup, but I do have concerns about how many targets he'll truly get. And then to continue that, Foster Moreau is also someone who I have a shaky faith in. I was, touting to use him a couple of weeks earlier on, and it didn't turn out, and then it did work last week. He's been very unpredictable. And then, of course, Hayden Hurst is not technically a great matchup here against KC. He's also not too great most weeks, but he's in an offense and going up against another offense where there's a heck of a lot of upside. So this is probably as high as I've had Hayden Hurst all year here at 12. And that's followed by Tyler Higbee, who I have 4 spots behind the ECR. So I have him at 13. The ECR on him is 9. Going up against Seattle, it's a great matchup. What's the concern? The quarterback. Do I need to say more? I mean, sure, quarterback might tend to target a tight end more when they're rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks, inexperienced ones. Where's the upside? Where's the touchdown? I don't know. It is a great matchup, though, so we're going to have a little bit of hope and faith for Tyler Higbee. He is talented. He has been a part of that offense most weeks, so we'll see about that. Don't love him, but once it gets... there's not a lot of love. There's a lot of question marks in this tier. And Dawson Knox, I have 7 spots behind the ECR. The ECR on him is 8. I wonder if that's a little bit of a hangover from last week's ranking. Some people maybe haven't really moved him back yet because he was really highly ranked last week. I warned you about that. This week, I'm going to have him, somewhere roughly where I usually have him. So at 15, going up against New England is a pretty neutral matchup there. Don't hate him, don't love him. There is always a great upside with him. So I don't know that this is going to be a thing when all is said and done this week with the rankings. I don't understand that quite. But once again, you can shuffle these guys up however you want, and you can make arguments. So let's move on to the next tier of tight ends, which starts at tight end number 19 with Noah Fant, followed by Mike Gesicki, Taysom Hill, Robert Tonyan, and this tier ends at tight end 23 with Logan Thomas. There's nobody I really have here to talk about, so that's how those rankings look. Now, on to my next tier, and that begins at tight end 24 with Austin Hooper, followed by Cameron Brate, Jonnu Smith, and Jordan Akins at tight end 27. I am going to just mention here, Cameron Brate, I have 5 spots ahead of the ECR. I'm at 30. I do believe the experts have Cade Otton ahead of Cameron Brate. Well, Cameron Brate came back and at least split the actual production in his first week back with Cade Otton, and this last week he outproduced Cade Otton. Cade Otton was still on the field some, so he has some potential to score points. Like last week, he didn't score any points, no targets, nothing, but he was still on the field. But I think that they've gone back to Cameron Brate as their tight end 1. He is more experienced, and it's not like he has a bad connection with Tom Brady, although I do like Cade Otton's connection with Brady a little bit more. I think he gives a little bit more on the passing game, but I'm sure blocking and such things, Cameron Brate's a little bit better to have out there. And same with O'Keefe, probably why he got some work once they're... And not to mention, too, they lost, I don't know if he's a tackle, but they're a big offensive lineman there this week, so they might need a little help in the blocking department from tight ends, and that's probably where Cade Otton would struggle the most at this point in his career. Then Jonnu Smith, I have ranked 26th, also 5 spots ahead of the ECR. The ECR on him is 31, going up against a Buffalo, so this is really an upside play for Jonnu. This last week, he all of a sudden kind of disappeared after he was building up a resume for like 3 weeks straight. So don't know if he'll disappear or not again, but these are the tier of guys that hopefully you're not having to play anyways. And here are the tier of guys who I would recommend even less than them. Starts off at tight end 28 with Will Dissly, followed by Cade Otton, Harrison Bryant, and Kylen Granson. None of these guys who I'll have ranked this week projected. I also will not have Daniel Bellinger or Jelani Woods projected. However, if you remember earlier this year when Jelani Woods had a touchdown game, kind of put him on my watch radar. It's a little late in the season now to start to try to watch guys, but if he does something next week, obviously, then I'll start to look at him as far as projections go. But Jelani Woods, super, super talented. Sky's the limit kind of high, maybe not sky's the limit, but high upside tight end who can put a beat down on some opponents. He's a big dude, and he's pretty athletic, so like him. And then Daniel Bellinger, is supposed to potentially be playing this week. They believe the head coach said that. So if he were to play this week, I would probably have him. He's pretty much, I have the same amount of faith in him as Jordan Akins, and hopefully I will be able to build enough faith in that 1 week for him to be into this argument. Hopefully he has a great week. But I wouldn't want to be trusting that his first week back here. But he is a tight end that was starting to turn it on right before he got his eye taken out of his eye socket. I don't know. All right, that is it for the tight ends. Once again, quarterbacks already came out. Wide receivers, running backs will be coming out in this afternoon, or maybe they're all already out, depending on when you're seeing this. So thank you very much. Peace out.